Hey, everybody, welcome to the program, WRSA Radio. I'm your host, G1. As always, I hope you're having a good week. It's been a rather busy one for me. School has begun again, and I had a second interview for one of the prospective jobs that I have going right now, which is really good news. It's great news. I hope that pans out into something, but we shall see. Having missed putting out a show last week, I kind of want to circle back a little bit to the topics that I had planned to cover because they're still on the radar. They're still news, and we have some more information about them now. So kind of fortuitous that I missed a show last week, and I'm able to put together something a little bit better maybe this week. We have had multiple developments, and I'm going to go on record saying that I think these things are related. Now, what am I referring to? Well, I believe that the Cybertruck bomber at the Trump Hotel and the fires in California are related. I think what ties them together is at least one of the actors behind it, and drones, or UAS as they are known in the industry. That is unmanned aerial systems, in case you're not aware. So let me weave this together for you in this program. And I will also just go ahead and throw out that this is a working theory. I'm not completely convinced of it myself. It is very speculative. I don't have tons of direct evidence to build a case for this in every aspect. I couldn't prove it in a court of law, as they say. I have some evidence, and then there's a lot of reading between the lines and kind of speculating behind the curtain kind of things. So, again, working theory. I'm sure that some of you will poo-poo this, and you guys may be 100% correct here, okay? I had someone take me to task a couple of shows back when I was talking about Cybertruck bomber, suggesting that I was just pulling things out of thin air. And I was like, well, no, I'm just asking questions. You guys have to decide for yourself. I'm making content. It's my speculation. I'm putting it out there. It may not be accurate. Okay. I will let you know when I am just speculating, though. Okay. I'm not gonna throw things out there to mislead you intentionally or put you down some false path. You need to make up your own mind for it. I'm just putting what I think is possible out there, at least in this case. And like I said, I'll let you know when I'm speculating. But lo and behold, after I put that episode out, and it had been up for a number of hours, we get this announcement from Sean Ryan, and information begins to kind of flow out that there really was more to this guy than meets the eye. He was not just simply a dude, a soldier that, had kind of gone off the rocker. So let's begin there, because that story just kind of blew up in the blogosphere with Sean Ryan publishing those emails that had been sent to his show. And then he does an interview with another YouTuber who is a conduit for whistleblowers from the military and the government. And they detailed this information that they had been provided by the Cybertruck guy, which was later confirmed by the FBI. If you can take that confirmation as factual, we know how the FBI is. But at any rate, it was confirmed by the FBI. They said, yeah, we wholeheartedly believe that these emails came from his account. Nothing in the emails that Sean Ryan published or the other guy published looked out of sorts. There was some speculation that, because there was a spell checking that might... No, whatever. There was nothing that looked wrong with those emails. It looked like it came from someone purporting to be the Cybertruck guy. And for what we know, that is accurate. And then they also put out some information that they had received from conversations that they had with Department of Defense public affairs officers, certain units and whatnot. So that story took another turn when the guest on Sean Ryan's show, and I can't remember his name or what he goes by. Some warrant officer or something or another is his handle on YouTube. But at any rate, he kind of came out the next day and said, "No, I was wrong on the show. We were kind of speculating. But I think this guy was just someone who was off of his meds." I don't buy that. I think that was just a way for that guy to kind of try to disconnect himself from this, because I think he was in fear of what was going to happen to him. Now, I'm not saying that he was contacted or threatened or anything like that, though he may well have been. I think it was just simply he began to really grasp the implications of what he was getting into, and he wanted to detach from that. He wanted to back off from it. There was a lot of people coming out against him, as well as Sean Ryan, and saying they were lying. In fact, there was some. There's a YouTuber who he's an apologist. He's just a shill for the military-industrial complex, and he's always talking about Ukraine and all these things, and going after other YouTubers who are counter to the narrative. And he came out and just flat out called them liars. And then when the FBI came back and said, "Well, no, these are legitimate emails," suddenly he was silenced. And the good thing about it was he was just taken to task in his comment section of his video that he put out, just raked over the coals. But anyway, and so I think this guy, he just kind of got cold feet. I think is really what it was. I don't think he has the resources or the pull that Sean Ryan has. And so I think he just said, hey, he was talking to the guy's wife and getting, more of the story. And I think or at least from her perspective, and I think he just wanted to back off from it. But basically the emails from the Cybertruck guy, as well as his text messages that he forwarded over to those two, kind of detail a story that is pretty sinister in nature, and it goes into some exotic technology that I've covered on this show in the past. He says that they were, or he was involved in UAS activity, this drone activity, while he was most recently deployed in Germany. And then he says that these drones and the drones that have been seen over New Jersey and other places, at least in part, some of them do represent exotic propulsion. He uses the term gravitic propulsion, which I found kind of humorous that Sean Ryan and the other guy, as well as Tucker Carlson on a recent episode of his show, they talked about this, all of them talked about it, and they said they were not familiar with the term gravitic propulsion. They all kind of indicated that they had never encountered that before. Well, if you've been in any way well-read or associated with UFO lore for any time, you've heard that term. It goes back many decades, okay, at least in those circles. And it's just a way of saying that the propulsion uses anti-gravity or something that impacts or repels gravity in order to fly. So this Cybertruck guy is saying in his emails that some of these drones use gravitic propulsion, that these drones that we've been seeing are Chinese drones, or most of them, and that it is a show of force to demonstrate, much like the spy balloons, that China can violate our airspace and there's little that we can do about it. And he does say, of course, that the U.S. also has this technology. He says the U.S. and China are the only ones that have this. And what he doesn't come out and say, but he's really kind of implying, is that we're doing this to China, and this is sort of it just doesn't get talked about, and this is just kind of a back and forth between us. Now, Cybertruck guy then goes on to say that he was being followed by government agents, or what he believed to be government agents, and that he was trying to kind of blow the lid off of this story, as well as some war crimes that had taken place. And I think I talked a little bit about some of this on another episode. But anyway, let me state that I do not accept this story as 100% factual. I will caution that by saying that the Cybertruck guy may be telling the story as he knows it. That it's, from his perspective, it's 100% factual. That's the information that he's been given or what he believes to be true. So I don't want to disparage him unnecessarily there. He may not be, he may be an unwilling or unknowing agent of a narrative. It's just the truth as he's been told it. But I just don't believe that he's 100% accurate in what he's saying there. And then the story for him kind of spins off from there, and I don't want to go down the path for now as it's still developing. It's kind of tangent to what I'm working on here. It's not completely irrelevant. It may prove to be something that does disconnect these two events down the road. We just don't know yet. And I'm referring to the interviews with his wife that is kind of in the works, the statements that she's released. There were implications that his child may not be his, which she emphatically denies. She says, no, that is 100% bunk. It is his child. And that was kind of inserted into the conversation by the PAO officers that Sean Ryan spoke to, which was probably done just to suggest that they were trying to shape some kind of narrative that this guy was angry with his wife, and so that's why he offed himself. And there were some other suggestions that he had stopped taking medication and that had made him paranoid and suicidal and stuff. I want you to ask yourself, have you ever heard of an active duty Special Forces soldier being deployed overseas while they were taking antipsychotic medications or being treated for mental health issues? I think that's unlikely. Okay, if that's the case, we have far bigger problems in our military than Chinese spy drones flying over the coast. Okay, that's a big problem. I don't dismiss that completely, but I just think it's highly unlikely. I think this guy was legit, and he was recently, at least on paper, deployed to Germany to work on a UAS program. So why do I say on paper? Well, because I don't think he was spending that much time in Germany. I think there's little doubt that he was actually in Ukraine. I don't believe that he was necessarily forward on the front lines, but I believe that he was in a rear echelon kind of working space with that drone UAS program in support of the Ukrainians. We've seen that happen before. We've seen the Russians conduct some type of missile strike in Ukraine on a headquarters, and then a couple of weeks later you'll see, well, this UN or US general or this Polish general or German just mysteriously passed away unexpectedly. Well, that's a backhand way of saying that those guys were in that headquarters that got hit by the Russians and they were killed by that missile strike. Okay, that kind of stuff is taking place. Don't mistake that story for reality. Okay, there's no doubt that Cybertruck guys supported the Ukraine and the efforts there. We saw pictures of him with a Slava Ukraina shirt on that has a crest on it, and I laid that out in the last episode. He was working to get mercenaries to the conflict in some capacity, so I think he was very much in agreement with how the U.S. military and the defense industry is supporting that conflict, and he's not alone there. Many people are supporting it. But who's not supporting it? Well, the incoming administration and a significant number of people who voted for Donald Trump. We've seen this conflict go on for too long and cost the taxpayers billions of dollars, while we see a continued decline in our standard of living. It's unsustainable. It's not achieving anything more than dead Ukrainians and dead Russians. And that's not a beneficial outcome to anybody. And that's where I stand on it, and so do millions of other Americans. So who might be angry about that? Who might be so angry that they might act against the people of the United States, and at least symbolically, Donald Trump himself? Well, if you go back to the Russia hoax, and you do a little digging, something that constantly gets glossed over and kind of pushed into the weeds, is that the Steele dossier made its way to the U.S., at least in one iteration of it, and passed around Congress via John McCain. And it came to him from Ukrainian intelligence, contacts that he had there, John McCain was working with. There was a lot of motivation inside of Ukraine, the Ukrainian deep state, to keep Trump out of office. And that motivation has not gone away. It's just increased at this point to possibly become outright hatred for the man and the politics and policies that he's going to put in place. They know the tap is getting cut off, and that if the U.S. stops sending money and arms to them, that the war's over, and Russia's going to get at least most of what it wants. So perhaps Cybertruck guy found out about something that he didn't detail in his emails. Maybe he wanted to disguise that story enough for various reasons until he got in front of the right people. And so he talked about something that would at least get him on a show or to an interview or whatnot, and then he would spill the beans about this. And someone in our deep state was following him, and they're possibly Ukrainian agents. And they kind of got rid of him in a very symbolic FU to Trump. So how does this link to the California fires? Well, people have detailed a lot of questions about these fires. That's out there on many other channels and avenues, so I won't spend a whole lot of time there. But let's just say there's a lot of questions about the fires and how they were mishandled. But it strikes me that if someone was interested in conducting a terror attack, that they might be watching the weather forecasts for high winds. They might be watching the horrible DEI mess that is the leadership of LA County and the LA County Fire Department. They might be watching the water supplies and noting that those reservoirs are empty for maintenance. They might be watching and see that the mayor was leaving the country to go on a trip to Africa and would be unavailable for decision-making and guidance. They might see all those factors come together and conclude that now is a really good time to put a plan into motion. Well, what plan? Well, people have speculated or kind of jumped to directed energy weapons, but that's a really exotic technology, and it's not necessary, okay? Flying drones up into the hillside brush and scrub and have those drones carrying thermite canisters, flying those canisters around after you've ignited them remotely, raining down sparks and flames until they can see that the fires have taken and started and begun to spread. That's far simpler. It's far easier. Now, where have we seen just that type of attack take place using drones and thermite canisters? In Ukraine. We've seen at least 2 examples of this take place in Ukraine on the front lines. They've used thermite canisters on drones to burn out the positions of Russian troops. They've started fires in these, they call them shelter belts of tree lines, caught them on fire to drive the Russians out of them. So this is a proven technique. Very simple, very low cost, very low risk. Far more likely that something like that would be used to start these fires. So someone who wanted to possibly bring some payback to the people in the U.S. who perhaps they viewed as being, well, not supportive enough, not doing more to get Harris elected. You know, maybe it was just such a tempting target because of all those conditions that I laid out and all of the wealth that is concentrated in such a small place. I don't know. Maybe it also is just in support of some other deep state agenda that has been speculated about in other places. All those things are possible. Now, I don't believe that these deep state actors are simply, Ukrainian terrorists in the U.S. just acting of their own accord. I think that whomever is doing this, and I do lean towards them being at least at the direct action level, Ukrainians, I think they're acting in support of a higher agenda, an effort that is directly or at least parallel with our deep state. And by the way, as I'm working on this, I learn that there was yet another fire that broke out in California last night. A massive battery factory out there has caught fire. Now, folks, I've talked about before on this show about unrestricted warfare, and that it is likely taking place in the U.S. right now. I believe that this has been going on for some time. I believe that there are multiple possible perpetrators involved here. I can't say for sure who they are, but I think that there is a covert war taking place on our soil right now, and it involves fires and infrastructure attacks, industrial attacks, cyber attacks. All those things are being done to us, and our government is either complicit in it, or deep state elements are complicit in it, or they're powerless to stop it. And either way, it's dangerous and unacceptable, and we have to call attention to this as much as possible. It's not crazy talk. We at least need to be discussing this openly and more serious and in higher levels of authority. So spread the word. At least, like I said, talk openly about this possibility that this is all deliberate action, that we need to consider this possibility. Because otherwise, people, we're just waltzing into doom here. Anyway, that is all I have time for this week. Like and subscribe. Come see us over on Gab, Nice Crew, and the Old Cold Fury blog, and I will see you on the next episode.